To this edition of Dustin's Kaleidoscope. I'm Dustin Dumas Weeks, and I have the pleasure of being here today with Andrea Amador, who is the author of Loving the Skin You Are In, and who you are also the president of The Juicy Woman.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And this is the book, Loving the Skin You're In, and we'll just place that over there. We'll talk about that a little later. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
First of all, you know, I saw your book, and so I wanted to obviously talk about that. So let's just get right in. Tell us a little bit about your book, Loving the Skin You're In.
The book is all about empowering women. I have always struggled with my weight, always felt uncomfortable because I'm a chick with thighs. And it has been a tremendous struggle for me trying to fit in and trying to be something that I was not. I never quite felt good enough because I was always overweight, and it was something that was a tremendous source of insecurity for me for so many years. And then as I became older, then I became totally obsessed with dieting.
And when you say older, do you mean like teenager, or do you mean
early?
No,
I'm 50 now.
Okay.
So up until, about the time, about 44 years old, I was dieting from 10 to 44.
You started at 10, wow, that's so young.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
And in retrospect, now I realize that it was really my dad's perspective that I was overweight when I really wasn't.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that happens to so many kids.
And he told you that you were overweight, or did he?
I constantly got messages that I couldn't trust myself around food, that I was overweight, guys don't like fat girls, you know, all sorts of little subtle and not so subtle messages.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did it manifest itself, like when you were 10 all the way through your mid-40s?
Well, there were more complications because I had a lot of sexual abuse in my background prior to, going and living with my dad, which was a safety zone with the exception of putting me down for my weight.
Right.
But many times when people are abused, they feel that they have to harbor the secret, and it's like a mark of shame.
Okay.
That they hold. So for me, it was a double-edged sword where I was getting the messages about the weight, and it was so important to me to continue to eat, to try and create that boundary of protection, because that's all I knew.
Okay.
As a kid.
Okay. And so you ate as a way to sort of protect yourself?
Yes.
And
yes.
Okay. And so you started at 10, and you continued to diet for the next 34 years.
34 years, yes.
So take us through, I'm sure you weren't on the same diet, and I'm sure you went off. And how did?
Oh my gosh, I've done Weight Watchers, I've done Diet Center, I've done so many different ones, not to mention the cabbage diet, the Air Force diet, the Kentucky Fried Chicken diet, the no diet.
And what made you, at 44, what changed?
Oh, it was going to the doctor with my daughter. The doctor had said to me, prior to that time, I was very involved in starting to get my business going. It was going to be a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
And I was doing a lot of traveling. And over the course of that year, I had kind of lost touch with my daughter. She was just, home with Dad, and he took care of her. But I took her to the doctor's office, and the doctor had pointed out that she was about 25 pounds overweight. And
how old is she at this time?
Oh, now she's almost 17.
No,
she was 10.
She was 10 at that time. She was 10, okay.
Just going on 10. And the doctor was having a conversation very, very similar to what I remember my dad and the doctor were having when I was 10 years old.
Oh, really? Okay.
And at that time, I was in a networking group, and I had met a gentleman named Doc Frost, and he had retired as a therapist working with women and men around eating disorders.
Okay.
And he was having conversations with me, talking to me, and telling me of his success with his patients and how one of the biggest things is to stop dieting, to learn how to trust yourself and listen to your body. So it was a terrifying thing to me to do that. But after having that conversation with the doctor, I thought, okay, we're here at a fork in the road. What are we going to do?
Right.
Am I going to make the same mistakes that I've made with, well, it was my dad who made the mistakes, but I also have a son who's almost 22.
Okay.
And I took that same road as my dad did with my son. I intimidated him in an attempt to try and make him lose weight. You know, I would tell him, okay, come on, we got to get on the scale, or we got to go running or walking or whatever. I was an insane, crazy person. I feel tremendous sadness over this because it has shown up for him in a lot of insecurity.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So now that you understand that that wasn't the best thing to do for your son, and you have also seen that when your daughter was 10, that was probably the doctor. You could see the same pattern happening.
I saw it was unfolding before my eyes.
Like, what did you do?
I took a leap. I said, honey, you know what? We're going to do something different.
Okay.
I just heard of this new thing. This doctor is telling me that he has taught many people how to, it's called intuitive eating, where you listen to your body. You tune into the hunger signals. You eat when you're hungry, anything,
Okay.
and you stop before you're full.
And how do you know that you're hungry? Are these just the typical hunger pains, or is it like how do you?
It's hunger pains. It's different feelings throughout the body. Different people have different sensations.
And how do you know that your body, that what you perceive as like hunger is not really hunger, but you're just used to eating at
So
this
awesome.
at this particular time?
Yes, it's an awesome question because at that time I was in a place running the family business where I was hating it and I was under constant pressure and I was feeling like there wasn't enough that I could do. I was under constant criticism and I was a woman who was in power, but I wasn't stepping into my power.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I was using food as my go-to. And when you say, how do you know when you're hungry? When you're under that kind of pressure, you really don't. And it got to the point where I had gained 35 pounds. And I was eating every hour on the hour. And I justified that. And I said, oh, it's because I'm hungry. No, it's really not. It's really not.
Just like you were used to eating, this was your pattern, and that's just what you continue
Well,
to do.
at that time, my life was just hitting the skids.
Okay. Okay. And so what was it that made you decide, like at 44,
Yes,
what made the change? I mean, you mentioned the fork in the road.
yes.
What was that fork, and what did you decide, and
Well,
take us through that
prior
process?
to that, I had learned a process called emotional freedom technique.
Okay.
And it was such a powerful experience for me because having had experiences of abuse, when you have those kinds of experiences, you hide. You play really small. And after I was in a situation where I was going through coaching training, because it was very important to me to, share and to give to others.
Right.
And something reminded me of one of the worst memories of abuse that I could remember. And I was completely reassociated back into that place where my body was not my own. I was going through a full-scale panic attack in the middle of a classroom setting.
Okay.
And I was very lucky in that one of my peers had tapped me on the shoulder to get my attention, and she said, Andrea, are you okay? And I kind of shook my head no. She kind of pulled me out the door, and as soon as the door closed, I started crying hysterically because I was so immersed in that memory. And she said to me, I remember through my tears, she said, I know you don't know what it is that I do, but if you'll give me permission to tap on the side of your hand and parts of your face, I can help you.
Okay.
Can you speak? And I couldn't speak because I was so nervous and upset and crying. She said, that's okay. Can you hum? And I started humming, and she started tapping here, and she started tapping here, and here, and I'm going, and I remember hearing her say something like, even though, such and such happened. And it was almost as though, like I went through a rinse cycle. There was this tremendous flush of energy that went through my body. And at that point, I got my voice back, and I guess something happened where she could tell. She said, "Can you speak?" And I said, "Yes." And then within the next 10 minutes or so, I dissected that particular memory into tiny little bits and had no feeling whatsoever. There was no more feeling of terror. There was no sense of triggering of the fear and the sadness and the pain. And for the first time ever, it became a no-brainer why I had to forgive the people who had done so much harm.
Wow.
And that was such a turning point in my life. That's when I realized I have to give this to other women. Because by the grace of God, my grandmother had given me years and years of therapy, paid for therapy, about 18 years to reconcile those memories. And within those 10 minutes, that accomplished more than the 18 and a half years.
Wow.
I became a different person. Like I was saying before, I was really shy. Well,
not after that, right?
Anymore.
Wow, and then you just changed did that help facilitate the change in your entire life or your diet? Or?
I decided to become a speaker. Me, Andrea, scaredy cat.
Wow.
After things kind of went south with the family business and my father and I became estranged, it was a heartbreaking thing for me. It still is. But it was a realization for me that I needed so much because I didn't realize for how many years I was relying on other people to take care of me. That I was stepping back and kind of taking a really small position and saying, no, I can't do it myself.
And this technique empowered you to take control over every single part of your life.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. When I realized that being fat is not the problem is really the way that you think of yourself, the way you feel about yourself. So for me, it equaled a really low self-esteem. Okay. And letting people take advantage of me and not speaking up and not feeling safe. And, in a setting with my husband, I'd be very jealous or I'd look for reasons why, I assumed he was having an affair. And I created so much chaos in my life. It was misery.
And then that's pretty amazing.
It is.
You were able to change not just your perspective, but your behavior. Because it's one thing to understand that, maybe this is not happening, like really happening, but it's another thing for you to take that actual step and behave in a different manner, which allows you to be the person I'm assuming that you were meant to be.
Yes.
Okay, so we have about 30 seconds left back in this particular segment.
Okay.
When we come back, I want to talk about your book, and I also want to talk about your blog talk radio show.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Dustin's Kaleidoscope, and we will be right back.
Local government, local educational institutions, and local community members all use cable access TV to communicate their message. They depend upon it as an affordable means of outreach. Public educational and government access television empowers local government agencies, individuals, and groups to use the media to speak directly to their constituents in a more direct and cost-effective way. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Welcome back to this edition of Dustin's Kaleidoscope. We are here with Andrea Amador, and at the end of the last segment, we were just about to talk about your book, Loving the Skin You're In.
Yes.
And now we can talk about it.
Okay.
I would love to hear about it.
I'm so sorry.
No. Tell me. So you told me that the book initially that it's about empowering women. Yes. Tell me specifically what we can find in the book.
Okay. It's an empowerment manual.
Who should buy the book?
Absolutely. It is an empowerment manual. My particular focus was dealing with my weight and feeling frustrated around my body. And there is a tremendous amount of talk to the woman who's struggling with, body image issues. But what I learned as I was going through my NLP practitioner training is that the core of what I needed in terms of changing my behavior was that I need to learn how to set boundaries.
Oh, okay.
And there is a whole huge chapter on boundaries. I think it's 85 pages.
I think everyone could benefit in reading
yes.
that chapter alone.
Yes.
So
We just don't realize how much of our talk is victim speak.
okay.
When we put ourselves down, when we think, oh, I can't do this, I'm stupid. Our beliefs are the core of who we are. And many times we're walking around with an old disempowering story that just doesn't work anymore. So the fact that something happened to you, that doesn't change. But what can change is that you can change the way you see it. So in that instance where I was first introduced to the EFT, when I was going through that panic attack,
Yes.
what happened for me is that there was this tremendous shift where I went from thinking of myself as, oh, poor Andrea, the victim, to, holy God, look what it is that I got through, and now what I can give to others.
Exactly.
It's taking the energy of your body and moving it in a way that it becomes forward momentum instead of like, no, don't look at me. None
So
of that.
did this happen gradually, or was it really like it clicked? I mean, was it when you were in that meeting and then the person started tapping on you, did it literally click, or did you understand it then and then it gave you the freedom to do what you
That
needed
was
to do?
a literal click that day. But in terms of continuing the progression going forward, one of the things that was very powerful for me was meeting a woman named Janice Stanfield. And she is a fabulous singer-songwriter. And she wrote this song called If I Were Brave.
Okay.
And I met her at Jack Canfield's self-esteem seminar, and we hit it off magnificently. And during the course of the seminar, she would be playing her music, If I Were Brave. So if you know about anchors, where they're like memory markers in the body, it leaves an impression. You think about something. So for example, when you think about the American flag, you have a certain thought, a certain image that pops up for you.
Right.
When people talk about 9/11, most people know exactly where they were at that moment. So anchors work for you and against you. In the case of the abuse, it was an against me type of thing, where a lot of things were triggering that memory, watching the news, listening to somebody talk about molestation or whatever the case may be. When you change the way that you see something, you are in a position of power.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so this is what your book, it empowers
It is
people.
every step of the way, every step of the way.
That's awesome.
I talk about how we teach people how to treat us
Yes.
all the time.
That's very important.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
even, you may not even realize that you're doing it, but
Yes.
and I think people reading your book, this would give them tools so that they understand, not only do they understand, but they can also, like you said, teach people how to treat
Yes.
them. Where can we get your book?
Oh, you can get that on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and TheJuicyWoman.com.
TheJuicyWoman.com, and that is your website.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So you also have started a radio show?
Yes,
Online.
yes,
Can
Blog
you-
Talk radio show.
Yes.
It's called Lovin' the Skin You're In,
Okay.
after the book, and it talks about all of the pieces that really need to come together in terms of changing the way that you think about yourself, because so many women just they hate their bodies.
Yes.
And they think that their body is the problem. And I did too. So I really want to pull the wool off of their eyes and say, hey, you got to look at what's going on, the way that you think about yourself, because your eating and your shopping habits and every other thing that you do in a compulsive nature, it is a result or a consequence of the way you feel.
You know, you mentioned a couple of times right now that eating and shopping go hand in hand almost. You know what I mean?
Surfing the internet, sex, really anything that we do to an obsessive degree, it's because there's a compulsion driving it. There's an urge that's not being met.
Is there some? Oh, so there is something missing.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And we're
Okay.
trying to fill it in an external way, and we need to look internally and see what's going on.
So where can people listen to your Blog Talk Radio show?
Right on Blog Talk Radio. The website is blogtalkradio.com.
Okay.
The-juicy-woman.
The-juicy-woman. Okay, we'll
Yes.
put that up for you.
Great.
Okay, so that's wonderful. So you have both the book. I mean, you have these wonderful tools for
I'm
people.
popping.
You know what I mean? You have the book and you have the Blog Talk Radio show. So what can people expect to hear coming up soon on your Blog Talk Radio show?
Well, now it's time for the guests because I've taken my time. I've been in the spotlight for about 10 weeks, and
Okay.
I've talked and I've shared a lot of the core principles of my book. I have a reclaim method, 7 particular steps that I encourage women to follow.
And when you say reclaiming what?
Reclaim your life, really.
Okay.
Reclaim. R stands for take responsibility for your life. Take 100% responsibility.
Okay.
Look around. Whatever it is that you can change it. Whatever you can't, you have to come to peace with it.
Okay.
E is embrace your emotions. Nothing is bad. We just label emotions as good or bad, but they're really not. They're all energy. C, cope with your stress. If that damn painting is crooked on the wall, then get up and turn it around. And that goes for the lesser, also the greater things that bug us. L, love your body. There are things that we need to do to show love for ourselves. Saying no, wow, tantamount.
Right.
Yes, act to attract. When you step out and you do things that are contradictory to what you think you can do, there's an up level, an upgrade in your self-esteem. Like, wow, I can do that too. Okay.
Right.
I, intention. When you focus and you spend time each day quietly, silently, listening to what's inside and shutting out all the stuff that's outside, it's so powerful. And M is mastermind. That's coming together with people of the same thought and mind of wanting to honor themselves in a fresh way.
And I would imagine that means keeping the people who do not want to honor you or themselves
Yes.
out of your life.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's what. So that's what we can expect to hear on your upcoming episodes.
Yeah, well, the upcoming, as of April 10th, I'm going to be interviewing a lot of experts.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I'm so excited about it.
That is so. That's awesome.
Yes.
So, I wanted to get back to your book because you mentioned one chapter. Are there any other particular chapters that you'd like to tell us about?
Let's see. I think it really has to do with knowing that all around us is energy. We are these tremendous, we're like, we're vibrating energy and we don't realize it. We have this power inside of us to reflect whatever it is that we're thinking. So when you're feeling upset and when you're feeling angry or sad or whatever it is, and that just kind of comes over you like a wave, realize that that emotion won't kill you, to just feel it.
Right.
That's why many people will run and they'll do the shopping or they'll, go and eat that Twinkie or whatever the case may be. But when you can sit with that emotion and really let it flow through you, look at it in a fresh way, that's incredible. And then the technique that I teach, the emotional freedom technique, that will supercharge that energy and move it into a direction you want it to go.
Wow. That's exciting.
It's so exciting.
The other thing that we talked about briefly before the show was that this is what you teach is not only applicable to adults but also to young adults
Yes.
and to some children, so that they understand one, boundaries, but also that they basically that they should look at their self-image
Yes.
according to what they really look like, as opposed to what this magazine says they should look like, and the TV and other things like that.
Yes.
So you mentioned that. Could you talk about that as well?
Absolutely.
Like
For years, I've been working within the school system since my daughter and son were really young, about 10 years or so.
Okay.
And then once I got my coaching certification, I started talking to the teachers and I said, hey, I'm learning all about boundaries and self-esteem. Can I share it? So I've created several different types of self-esteem programs and shared them with the schools and now the colleges, and I'm starting to broaden because it's so important for kids to recognize that they have much more power over themselves. They can manage their emotions so much better than anybody ever thought they could.
That's a wonderful takeaway because
Yes.
I think because of the way our society is, traditionally you always respect elders regardless, you know, and what you're saying is basically you as a child have the power over your body, over how you relate to other people and things like that. So that's so important. And so these are techniques that you've taken into the school system and shared with them.
Yes.
What has the reaction been?
The reaction has been so exciting because people just don't realize that they have this kind of ability to shift the way that they feel. And that's so exciting because many of our problems that we have stem from childhood. So if we could actually help our children to shift the way that they feel, to take a bullying incident and turn it into something that can empower them or something that they realize, okay, that was the problem of the bully, that was his problem, I'm not a bad person because of it.
Right.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
That's awesome. We have about 1 minute left, and I've so enjoyed talking to you. You have to leave us with something that you think everyone should know.
Oh my gosh, it's not personal. Everybody has to think that it's not personal. Whenever they have a conflict with a person, with a relationship, when somebody disappoints them or they're faced with rejection, if they're a business person and something goes south or sour or whatever, it does not serve to be thinking, oh, poor me.
Right.
Just think, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next?
In other words,
Deal with the stress, deal with the hurt, recognize it, and just get past it. Blow the doors open.
Wow. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
This was tremendous. And once again, where can we find your book?
That is thejuicywoman.com.
Okay, and it's called Loving the Skin You're In.
Yes.
And if we want to tune into your blog talk radio show,
Yes.
Can you give us the URL? Or?
Sure. It's blogtalkradio.com/the-juicy-woman.
Great. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
This was
Thank
wonderful.
you, Dustin.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Thanks again. Bye.